The Indians and Chinese are all of the opinions that, of the world's kings, 4 are to be counted as great. They consider the first of these 4 to be the king of the Arabs. It is a unanimous opinion among them, about which there is no disagreement, that of the 4 kings, he is the mightiest, the richest in possessions, and the most resplendently fine in appearance, and that he is the king of the great religion to which nothing is superior. The king of China counts himself next in importance after the king of the Arabs, then comes the Byzantine king, and finally Balhara, the king of those Indians who pierce their ears. This Balhara is the noblest of the Indians, all of whom acknowledge his nobility. Although each one of the kings in India rules independently, they all acknowledge his superior rank, and when his envoys arrive at the courts of any of the other kings, they make obeisance to them as a mark of honor to Balhara. He is a king who distributes payments to his troops as the Arabs do, and he owns many horses and elephants and possesses great wealth. His coinage is in the form of dirhams called Tatiri dirhams, which are 1.5 times the weight of dirhams in the coinage of the Arab realm. The coins are dated by the year of each king's reign, counting from the end of his predecessor's reign. In contrast to the Arab practice of dating from the era of the Prophet, eternal peace be upon him, they take their dates from their individual kings. Their kings live long lives, and often one of them will reign for 50 years. The people of Balhara's kingdom assert that their rulers' lengthy reigns and long lives on the throne are due entirely to their fondness for the Arabs. None of the other rulers shows the Arabs such affection as Balhara, and his people share his fondness for them. Balhara is the name given to each of these kings, as is the case with Kisra and so on. It is not a personal name. Balhara's rule covers territories beginning with the coast of the Sea of Larawi, a region called Al-Kumkum, and continues overland as far as China. He is surrounded by other kings who make war on him, but he has the upper hand over them. Another of the Indian rulers is one called the King of Al-Jurts. He has a large army, and none of the other Indian princes has the like of his cavalry. He is the enemy of the Arabs, although he acknowledges the King of the Arabs to be the greatest of rulers. No other Indian is as hostile to Islam as he. He inhabits a peninsula where his people have great wealth and numerous camels and other beasts. They buy and sell using unworked silver as currency, and it is said that they have mines of silver. Nowhere in the land of India is one safer from robbery than in their territory. Moving now to India, if a man accuses another of an offense for which the mandatory penalty is death, the accuser is asked, "Will you subject the person you have accused to ordeal by fire?" If he agrees to this, a piece of iron is first heated to such a high temperature that it becomes red hot. The accused man is told to hold out his hand, palm up, and on it are placed 7 leaves from a particular tree of theirs. The red-hot iron is then placed on his hand, on top of the leaves. Next, the accused has to walk up and down, holding the iron until he can bear it no longer and has to drop it. At this point, a leather bag is brought out. The man has to put his hand inside this. Then the bag is sealed with the ruler's seal. When 3 days have passed, some unhusked rice is brought, and the accused man is told to husk it by rubbing it between his palms. If after this no mark is found on his hand, he is deemed to have got the better of his accuser, and he escapes execution. Moreover, his accuser is fined a maund of gold, which the ruler appropriates for himself. On some occasions they heat water in an iron or copper cauldron until it boils so furiously that no one can go near it. An iron finger ring is then dropped into the water, and the accused man is told to put his hand in and retrieve the ring. I have seen a man put his hand in and bring it out unharmed. In such a case, too, his accuser is fined a maund of gold. When a king of the land of Serendib dies, his corpse is paraded on a low-bedded cart, lying on its back with its head dangling off the rear of the cart, so that the hair drags up dust from the ground. And all the while a woman with a broom sweeps more dust onto the corpse's head and cries out, "O you people, behold your king! Only yesterday he reigned over you, and you obeyed his every word. See now to what he is come and the manner of his going from this world, for the angel of death has taken his soul. Henceforth let life delude you nevermore." These and other such words she declaims, and the obsequies continue for 3 days. Then a pyre of sandalwood, camphor, and saffron is made ready, and the corpse is burned on it, and the ashes scattered to the wind. All the Indians burn their dead on pyres. Serendib, the last of the islands, is part of the land of India. At times it also happens that, when a dead king is burned, his womenfolk enter the fire too, and are burned alive along with him. But if they wish, they do not do so. There are some in India whose habit is to wander the jungles and hills, seldom mixing with other people. Sometimes they live on leaves and jungle fruits and insert iron rings into the heads of their penises to stop them having sexual intercourse with women. There are some among them who are naked and others who stand upright all day facing the sun, naked too, but for a scrap of tiger or leopard skin. I once saw one of these men, just as I have described. I went away and did not return until 16 years later, and there I saw him, still in the same position. I was amazed at how his eyes had not melted from the heat of the sun. In every kingdom in India, the ruling family belonged to a single dynasty from which the royal title never passes to another house. They appoint crown princes. The case is similar with scribes and physicians. They all belong to distinct family lines to which the particular occupation is restricted. The various kings in India do not owe allegiance to a single ruler. Instead, each is master of his own country. Balhara, however, is regarded as India's king of kings. In the kingdom of Balhara and those of other Indian rulers, there are people who burn themselves to death with fire. This stems from their belief in the transmigration of souls, which has so firm a place in the hearts, and from their desire to banish from themselves any doubts about it. Certain kings of theirs, when they ascend the throne, have rice cooked for them and placed before them on banana leaves. The new king invites 300 or 400 of his companions. They come of their own free choice, not under any compulsion from the king, and gives them some of the rice, having first eaten some himself. One by one they come up to him, take a little of the rice and eat it. It then becomes obligatory for all those who have eaten some of this rice, when the king dies or is killed, to burn themselves to death by fire. This they must do to the last man, and on the very day of the king's death, without delay, until not a single one of them remains, or even a trace of them. If someone from the general populace makes up his mind to burn himself to death, he first goes to the gate of the king's palace to ask permission to do so. Then he goes around in the markets. In the meantime, a fire has been kindled for him in a huge great pile of firewood. There are men in charge of this who stoke the flames until they blaze red hot, as red as carnelian. The man then begins to run around the markets, preceded by people clashing cymbals and surrounded by members of his family and close kin. One of these now places on his head a wreath made from aromatic plants, fills the space in the center of it with burning embers, and sprinkles them with sandarak, which has the same effect on fire as does naphtha. The man walks on, the crown of his head ablaze and giving off the reek of burning flesh, but he does not alter his pace or show any fear, until at last he reaches the pyre, leaps into the flames, and is burned to ashes. An informant who was present when one of these men was intending to enter the fire reported that, when he was on the point of doing so, the man took a dagger, placed the point of it at the top of his abdomen, and, with his own hand, ripped himself open down to below the navel. He plunged his left hand into his innards, grasped his own liver and pulled out as much as he could, speaking all the while, then sliced off a piece of the liver and handed it to his brother, all to demonstrate his contempt of death and his ability to bear pain, and finally launched himself into the flames and into God's damnation. This same informant also maintained that in the uplands of this region live a group of Indians who, in their pursuit of the pointless and idiotic, resemble the Kanifiya and the Jalidiya in our lands, and that they and the coastal people are gang rivals. Men from the coast, the informant stated, continually go to the uplands and challenge the uplanders to match them in trials of endurance. Similarly, the uplanders go and challenge the men of the coast. For example, an uplander went to the coastal people to issue such a challenge. A crowd gathered around him, some of them onlookers and some of them gang members. The uplander demanded that the gang members do what he was about to do. If they could not, they would have to admit defeat. The challenger then went and sat at the edge of some bamboo thickets and told the people to bend one of the bamboo stems downwards. Now these bamboos are all tangled together like reeds, but their bases are as thick as large storage jars, or thicker. If the top of a bamboo is pushed downwards, the stem will respond by bending nearly to the ground, and if it is let go, it will spring back to its upright position. So the top of a thick bamboo was duly bent down until it was by the man. He then tied his long plaited hair to the stem with a tight knot, took a dagger, theirs have blades that cut as swift as fire, and said to the onlookers, "I am going to cut off my head with this dagger. The moment it is separated from my body, let it go, and as soon as the bamboo has sprung back to its upright position, taking my head with it, I will laugh out loud, and you will hear a short burst of chuckling." The men of the coast were unable to emulate his act. We have heard this account from someone we do not suspect of lying. Indeed, the story is now common knowledge because these regions of India are close to Arab lands, and such accounts reach the Arabs from there all the time. It is a feature of the Indians, when old age saps the strength of their men and women and their faculties become impaired, that someone in this state will ask his family to put him alive on a pyre or drown him in water. Such is their trust in the return of their souls to another body.